weaponization that was behind all this effort, and we're still getting more information, but we've released some records today.
I think Dan Bongino and folks at the FBI, they don't know where all the records are hidden. They still don't. They're not necessarily getting 100% cooperation. But this is outrageous what has happened. I just want to give you a timeline of this. I think you've already got the FBI sheet that shows the number of members of Congress that were targeted. Representative Kelly, Senators Graham, Hagerty, Hawley, Sullivan, Tuberville, myself, Senator Lummis, and Blackburn. Now, this memo was dated September of 2023. To put it all into context, the Mar-a-Lago raid occurred in August of 2022. Jack Smith announced the indictments against President Trump in August of 2023. So this is almost 2 months later. They're casting this net, this fishing expedition against members of the Senate and the House.
Weaponization that was behind all this effort, and we're still getting more information, but we've released some records today, and I'll let Senator Johnson take over from here, and then each one of you colleagues can join in when you want to, whatever you want to say.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Senator Grassley. It is because of his relentless advocacy for whistleblowers that a lot of this information is surfacing right now. We wouldn't know about the list of 100 Republican entities that were targeted by Jack Smith's Arctic Frost investigation. I don't think we'd know about this as well. So we need whistleblowers. I think Dan Bongino and folks at the FBI, they don't know where all the records are hidden. They still don't. They're not necessarily getting 100% cooperation. But this is outrageous what has happened. I just want to give you a timeline of this. I think you've already got the FBI sheet that shows the number of members of Congress that were targeted. Representative Kelly, Senators Graham, Hagerty, Hawley, Sullivan, Tuberville, myself, Senator Lummis, and Blackburn. Now, this memo was dated September of 2023. To put it all into context, the Mar-a-Lago raid occurred in August of 2022. Jack Smith announced the indictments against President Trump in August of 2023. So this is almost 2 months later. They're casting this net, this fishing expedition against members of the Senate and the House. Again, I've been investigating this with Senator Grassley. This doesn't surprise me, but it should shock every American of what the Biden administration has done. By the way, this is the first time I was targeted by the FBI. Under the Obama administration, the same thing happened to both Senator Grassley and I. As part of the Foreign Influence Task Force, we were giving a briefing to try and convince us that the Hunter Biden laptop was no big deal. Basically, they're trying to throw us off the track. So this is major corruption that's being revealed inside the Obama and Biden Department of Justice and the FBI. And I'll turn it over to, I guess, Senator Hagerty, who's one of the individuals. Again, none of us were subject to targets of this investigation. There's no predicate. There's no reason for this other than a fishing expedition, which, again, should outrage and shock every American. Senator Hagerty.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. And Chairman Grassley, thank you for your leadership in making this happen. This is an extraordinary revelation that just took place this afternoon. My colleagues and I found out, all of us Republicans, by the way, that we were placed under investigation by this FBI, under the Joe Biden FBI that was led, I presume, by Jack Smith and his predecessors. This isn't the first time that it's happened, though. Senator Johnson just mentioned this. I served on the Trump transition team in Trump Tower in 2016. Senator Blackburn was vice chair of the transition committee then, as were probably a dozen or more members of Congress. To think that we were all surveilled back then by the Obama FBI. This corruption runs deep, and it's gone on for far too long. And the fact that it's happened here again, the fact that they are looking at our records in 2023, sitting members of the United States Senate. Again, the only thing that we have in common, the only thing in common in this entire list is that we're all Republicans. They've decided to come after us. This is as partisan as it gets. The FBI and the corruption that's running there has to be cleared out. Thank God we have Kash Patel and Dan Bongino there. This has to be addressed. It has to be resolved. It needs to happen today. Thank you.
got some copies of
Do you
these
know this
papers
is-
you're talking
Is
about.
this part of
Yeah.
Arctic Frost?
Let's let
And-
the other.
Yes, you
Let
know-
our colleagues talk here first.
What we know is this, that the FBI under Joe Biden and under Barack Obama, that they exercised activity that they had no authority to exercise. And as Senator Haggerty mentioned, we know what they did in 2016 to the Trump transition team. And now we find out that after the Mar-a-Lago raid, after the indictment of President Trump, they surveil us, people who support President Trump, members who are all Republicans. But it shows you how out of control and rotten to the core and politicized the FBI had become, and how they had absolutely no problem at all whatsoever with political weaponization. We appreciate the information we've gotten today. We look forward to further investigation on this.
Well, I want to thank the President as well as Kash Patel and Dan Bongino for bringing this to our attention and beginning to bring more names to light, because we understand we're not the only ones that were targeted. There were others. This is disgraceful behavior by the Department of Justice, and it needs further investigation. I'm horrified that this information has been gathered on us without our knowledge, and that this kind of extreme behavior by the Biden administration went on, and now efforts to cover it up are being engaged in. But I really want to thank the leadership at Kash Patel's agency for helping bring this to light.
Can you tell us whether this is part of the Arctic Frost? I think you mentioned.
Yeah, it is part of, I can
Okay.
say that, it is part of Arctic Frost. It started with Special Agent Tebow years before, leading up to it, and that was all set up so Jack Smith could move ahead.
Senator, then are you going to be calling Jack Smith or other people before your committee to do an investigation? If you can come to the
I just
mic.
got this information today, and I'm not going to say what the next step is, but the FBI is going to dig deeper. You understand, all this information is not on the internet of the FBI. They want to keep it from the public, so when Chuck Grassley or any of us go to the FBI and want information, and they type in our name and what we want, nothing shows up because it's hidden. It's so embarrassing to them, probably so violation of personal property and people's rights and the law and the constitutional rights that they wouldn't want anybody to know about it. But thank God we got patriotic Americans that we refer to as whistleblowers that are willing to bring forth wrongdoing. And otherwise, we wouldn't even know this.
I'd just say this, one thing that is for sure, whatever steps that Chairman Grassley decides to take, Senator Johnson, their support is broadened dramatically now because they brought all of us into this. They've now got a long list. You've got the list now of those of us, Republican senators, who have been targeted by the FBI. This is going to get cleaned up. We're going to get to the bottom of it.
So I just want to, so they set up a prohibited file. So when we do oversight, we certainly have no access because nobody really knows that it even exists. The only reason this came to light is a lower level FBI employee trying to do a recertification to be able to do something, put this down basically as an application. So I'm qualified to be recertified because look at what I did. I basically approved this, and that's how it came to light. It's not like people within the FBI, other than the whistleblowers that come to Senator Grassley, are making this available. So Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, they don't know what documents exist. That's why, again, I want to emphasize, if you work for the FBI, if you work for the Department of Justice, and you're concerned about the integrity of your institution, you need to come forward. This has to be exposed so we can clean house and we can restore credibility and integrity to the FBI and Department of Justice.
And there was no predicate for,
Oh, yeah,
for
there's-
this.
well, we have-
Other than we're all Republicans and we support President
Yeah, we have
Trump.
no idea what caused this.
What was the
Yeah.
time frame of the phone records that they sought?
January 4th through, I think, January 8th or 7th. It was
Did you
a
get
limited
those
time period
records?
around January 6th, 2011, or 2021.
Were they able to retrieve those phone records?
Yes.
Yes.
Again, no content, but, who was called and date and time and length of call.
And are you saying that Director Patel was not aware of this until a whistleblower came forward? I'm just a little confused on that.
No, it wasn't, in this case, it wasn't whistleblower, it was literally somebody reapplying for a certain recertification on what they call their CAS system. And again, either this person was so low level and just didn't understand the implications of literally approving a subpoena on members of Congress, or the FBI under Biden and Obama was so cavalier about their partisan actions that she didn't think much of it. So she included this, which we find shocking, the subpoena on members of Congress's call records as part of her application for recertification. That's how this came to light.
People involved in this dirty work, some have already lost their jobs, and I'll bet other people will as well. Because if heads don't roll in this town, nothing changes.
Amen.
So just to be clear, in terms of congressional oversight, are you guys relying on the FBI to do this investigation, or are you starting an investigation on your own? Right? To be
FBI.
clear. Okay.
They've got the documents, we don't. But they've got to find the documents. Again, you have to understand the challenges Kash Patel, Pam Bondi face. They've got people, they still have partisan actors inside their agencies that aren't coming forward. They're asking the questions, they're looking for this stuff. This just happened to occur because somebody was re-upping her certification and put this basically, as proof that she was, or this person was able to be recertified.
And this is obviously, this appears to be different, though, from the defensive briefing that you and Senator Grassley got back
Oh, yeah, this is,
before 2016.
this is
right?
different.
This is a separate thing.
No, this is part of the Arctic frost, the wide net that Jack Smith was casting. Indicted President Trump, and they start coming after members of Congress. Just, again, it's a fishing expedition. None of us can imagine what the predicate would have been. And the FBI doesn't know. I mean, they're having a hard time finding the chain of approval. So again, you just have to understand the challenge that Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino are under just trying to investigate this.
And is it your
There's something
understanding-
rotten inside these agencies still.
Is it your understanding that this was a subpoena that was authorized by a court, or was it a national security letter? What do you know? What
I think it was approved by a court, correct? Grand jury,
Yeah.
but that's protected.
Have you heard from former FBI Director Christopher Wray at all? Do you expect to speak with him at all about this?
At some point in time, I think he'll
Yes.
maybe have to answer some questions.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming.